In a world gripped by ambition and betrayal, Mafia II stood apart, not as a game that tried to outgun or outpace its peers, but one that tried to outfeel them. Released in 2010, it followed a wave of sandbox titles that emphasized chaos and player freedom: GTA 4, Red Dead Redemption, Just Cause 2. But Mafia 2 dared to slow down. It pulled us into the smoke-filled bars, the rain-slicked alleyways, the cold stare of a man with nothing left to lose. It wasn't the biggest open world, nor the most complex gameplay system, but it had heart, and more importantly, it had tragedy. This is the story of Mafia II, a sequel born from ambition, hampered by setbacks, and remembered for the very things most games overlook: character, atmosphere, and consequence. At the center of Mafia II is Vito Scaletta, a man defined less by what he wants and more by what he's been denied. An Italian-American immigrant's son who returns from World War II, a decorated veteran, Vito comes home not to parades or prosperity, but to a family drowning in debt and a mother too proud to ask for help. He's offered nothing, not opportunity, not dignity. So, he does what so many in his position do: he takes it. But what sets Vito apart is the nuance in his descent. He doesn't fall into crime for thrill or glory. He's pulled, slowly, painfully, into a world that promises salvation, but demands a steep price. His transformation from soldier to mobster is methodical, tragic. Each promotion is accompanied by a loss. Each act of loyalty chips away at who he was. And by the time he realizes what he's become, there's no way back. Mafia II doesn't glamorize this journey. It paints it in muted tones, grays, not blacks and whites. Vito is not a hero, but neither is he a monster. He's something more dangerous: human. Where Vito is quiet, careful, and reserved, Joe Barbaro is pure impulse. He's Vito's childhood friend, the guy who always knows a guy, always has a plan, always walks into a room like he owns it, even when he doesn't. Joe is the beating heart of Mafia II, boisterous, crass, hilarious, but also loyal to a fault. He's the kind of friend who'll bury a body for you without asking why. And that's exactly what makes their friendship feel real. The dynamic between Vito and Joe is never one note. There are moments of levity, drunken nights, silly banter, fast cars. But beneath it all is a tension, a sadness. You can feel the clock ticking. You know, even if they don't, that it can't last. As the game progresses, you start to realize something chilling. This isn't a rags to riches story. It's a rags to ruin story. These men are being used, discarded, and betrayed by the very system they thought they were mastering. And in the end, loyalty becomes a liability. Mafia II doesn't reinvent the wheel mechanically, but it polishes what it does offer. Driving is a highlight. Vehicles have weight, momentum, snow impacts handling, tires screech with purpose, and vintage V8s roar with personality. From the frozen streets of the 1940s to, the sun-drenched avenues of the 1950s, the cars are more than transport. Gunplay, while modest by modern standards, feels grounded. The cover system encourages strategy. Every shootout feels risky. You're not a bullet sponge. A single mistake can mean death. That fragility lends tension to every encounter. Fistfighting is serviceable. It never reaches the depth promised during early previews, but it's cinematic enough to sell the illusion. Takedowns are crunchy, brutal. They feel like they belong in a mobster film. Still, it's not the mechanics that drive the experience, it's how they serve the story. Everything you do reinforces who Vito is and the world he's trapped in. To understand Mafia II, you have to understand what it could have been. Development was fraught with issues. Illusoft engine, once hailed as a breakthrough, became a burden. The shift from 6th to 7th generation consoles forced compromises. Deadlines loomed and vision clashed with feasibility. What we lost is staggering. A dynamic melee system with environmental kills? Cut. War flashbacks showing Vito's trauma? Cut. A branching narrative with choices and moral consequences? Gone. Real estate, businesses, dynamic police chases, faction systems, all stripped away. Even basic side missions were gutted. Scraps remain: an abandoned racetrack, unused dialogue, half-coded systems hidden in the game files. Like ghost stories whispered through a cracked radio, Mafia II is haunted by its own ambition. Empire Bay is a marvel of design. Every corner tells a story, even if the game doesn't let you interact with it. Walk down the street and you'll see newspapers blowing in the wind, pedestrians arguing, radios spilling out jazz and propaganda. Interiors are rich with detail: messy kitchens, flickering lights, advertisements for war bonds and cigarettes. But step outside the main story and Empire Bay begins to hollow out. There's no post-game content, no mini-games, no property to own or upgrades to chase. Side content exists only in DLC, and even then, it feels like an afterthought. And yet, Empire Bay still feels alive. Not as a sandbox, but as a stage. A carefully constructed theater of the 1940s to 50s America, where the illusion matters more than the interactivity. Comparisons between Mafia and Mafia II are inevitable. The first game, The City of Lost Heaven, told a tightly woven tragedy, Tommy Angelo's rise and fall, steeped in old-school restraint. It was smaller, clunkier, but focused. Everything served the narrative. Mafia II broadened the scope. More guns, more spectacle, more style. But in that expansion, it sometimes loses cohesion. The transitions between missions are abrupt. Character arcs feel rushed. The second act drags. Still, Mafia II delivers unforgettable moments. A snowy homecoming, a botched hit in a hotel, a blood-soaked brawl in a meatpacking plant, Vito sitting in a car, powerless as Joe is taken away. These moments define the experience, flawed but powerful. When Mafia II Definitive Edition dropped in 2020, many expected a full-blown remake akin to Mafia I's. What they got was a visual remaster, sharper textures, updated lighting, modest enhancements, but what it lacked in technical overhaul, it made up for in preservation. The voice work, the script, the music, all intact. The soul was still there. Yes, bugs were present. Animations creaked. But for many it didn't matter. This was a chance to revisit a story that had quietly cemented itself as a cult classic. A flawed gem, but a gem nonetheless. Replaying Mafia II today feels nostalgic, not just for the era it depicts, but for the era of gaming it came from. A time when story-driven, mid-budget titles still dared to walk their own path. Before everything had to be live service, online, endless. Mafia II is not a power fantasy, it's a cautionary tale. Vito never becomes the boss, never lives in luxury. He gets a taste, but it's poisoned. His path isn't about gaining power, it's about surviving in a system that never intended to let him thrive. He replaces one uniform, the soldiers, with another, the tailored suit of a mobster. Both promise belonging. Both deliver trauma. Even Vito's victories are hollow. He pays his family's debts, but loses them anyway. He earns respect, only to be treated as expendable. And Joe, the one constant in his life, taken. There's no justice, only silence. The final moments of Mafia II are still debated. Joe is taken away. Vito sits in a car, watching, helpless. He says nothing. The driver says even less. It's not a climax, it's a concession. Vito made his choices, and in doing so, he lost control of the ending. That silence? That's the real tragedy. Mafia II doesn't fade to black, it fades to regret. Mafia II is not perfect. It's incomplete. It's rough, but it's also unforgettable. In an industry filled with games that shout, Mafia II whispers. It doesn't want to entertain you, it wants to linger with you. It tells a story not about crime, but about consequence. About men who dreamed of escaping the gutter and ended up buried beneath it. So whether you played it in 2010 or discover it today, remember this. Not every game needs to be revolutionary. Sometimes all it needs is to make you feel something. Have you ever played Mafia II? What did you think of the game and its story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future content. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.